One of the biggest misconceptions that I keep hearing in the world are people saying, I'm just not creative. It makes creativity seem like it's a talent or just a special skill. In some ways, it may be, but in other times, it can be learned. Everyone has an inherent amount of creativity. It's just shown in different ways. So why should you trust me? Hi, I'm John. I'm a multi-patent inventor who's worked in corporate research majority of his career. Together with teams, I've helped tackle some of the auto industry's biggest problems with electric vehicles. What I've learned is nearly anybody can come up with an innovative solution if you put them in the right environment. So if you're one of those people who don't think that you're creative, you likely just aren't leveraging where you create best. Let me show you why. In 2004, neuropsychologist Arne Dietrich released a paper analyzing how humans were creative in different ways. What he found is that creativity splits into 4 different types, each with its own strengths and methods of creating. Shown on this graph is his breakdown. The x-axis of this chart is split into cognitive versus emotional, meaning did you have to have some type of specific knowledge necessary, or is your thinking more emotion-driven? The y-axis of this chart is broken down into deliberate versus spontaneous, meaning a decision is either systematic, cautious, and analytical, or it is done impulsively and without planning. The 4 groups that unfolded from this study are deliberate and cognitive, the Thomas Edison type, deliberate and emotional, the therapeutic aha moments, the spontaneous and the cognitive, the Eureka, or the spontaneous and the emotional, the artists, musicians, and thespians. For those of you who don't know, this means actors and actresses, because I had to Google that. So through Arne's study, he found that each one of these types carries a specific set of traits that allows individuals to create best in. First, we'll talk about those who are deliberate and cognitive, the Thomas Edison type. Individuals who possess deliberate and cognitive creativity tend to have a very research-oriented approach and prefer repeated experimentation and investigation in order to solve their creative goals. Individuals that fall into this zone leverage a portion of the brain known as the prefrontal cortex, which allows for long periods of concentration and information collection. Thomas Edison's trial for thousands of different types of filament in order to find the proper working one for his invention of the light bulb is a perfect example of deliberate and cognitive creativity. Next up is the deliberate and emotional creativity. This tends to be a more systematic approach with a more emotion-driven response. Instead of focusing on a specific area of knowledge or expertise, those with a deliberate and emotional-driven response tend to experience those aha moments when it comes to creating and inventing. Those who favor this type of approach tend to seek quiet solitude in order to think about and process what's happening with a problem. This quiet solitude leads to moments of clarity and creative inspiration for these types of individuals. The regulation of this type of creativity is handled by the amygdala and cingulate cortex, which balance logical reasoning with emotional awareness. The third category is the spontaneous and the cognitive creativity, so a more impulse-driven response with some pre-existing knowledge. Spontaneous and cognitive creativity happens when the conscious part of a brain takes a break and the unconscious part of the brain takes over. As a result, creative solutions can arise when an idea or an external stimulus stimulates the brain. A classic example of this is Einstein's Eureka moment when an external stimulus, the apple, fell from a tree, leading to his theory of gravity. Individuals in this category of creativity often find it necessary to shift their focus away from the problem at hand and move to something new. This shift in attention allows the basal ganglia to activate unconscious processing. When that happens, the prefrontal cortex then can access its entire memory bank and make uncommon connections. So the final category is the spontaneous and the emotional creativity, impulses with an emotion-driven response. In this category, typically artists, musicians, and actors and actresses embody this type of creativity. The amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for emotional processing, drives these individuals to these sudden bursts of creativity and inspiration, often allowing them to see things in a different viewpoint. These epiphanies are not deliberate or artificially created, but rather require time and patience to occur naturally. There's no specific pre-existing knowledge required within this category, but there's often a skill. As you can see, musicians have a skill within their instrument, artists a skill within their craft, actors and actresses a skill within their craft. As this skill is built up over time, different emotions and different responses occur when the instrument is touched. As you enhance your talent and skill, you'll often see things in a different emotional light, which allows that creativity to flow and shine. Due to this is the type of creativity that's often hard to curate because everybody has a different emotional response to their own skill. With all these categories in mind, start to think about how you come up with novel ideas. For me personally, in a work setting, I know I'm more of a cognitive thinker. Sometimes it's deliberate, other times it's spontaneous. I try to leverage both of the aspects of those two categories to make my inner creativity shine. However, I'm also a musician, so when I'm writing music or putting together a song, I tend to be more spontaneous and emotional, so I curate my environment in order to let my creativity thrive to that. Identify where you fall best and apply some strategies to let that shine. If you're deliberate and cognitive, you'll likely need time to keep researching or finding new information around the problem that you're trying to solve. Try reading new material, or even creating dumb lists in this video that I have here. If you're deliberate and emotional, you'll likely need quiet time to sit and think and process the amount of information. Take the appropriate amount of time to think on the matter and generate that type of aha response that's known with this sort of creativity. If you're spontaneous and cognitive, you'll likely need to step away from the problem altogether because your problems are solved with subconscious thought or external stimulus. I know for me, when I fall into this category, what I often do is break a problem into chunks. And when I can't solve one specific part of the problem, I put it to the back burner and move on to the next one and change my environment. I'll go work in a new place or read a new type of information in order to generate that external stimulus that'll get me thinking about things differently. And the final one is spontaneous and emotional. And since this one requires a skill, it's really the hardest to curate. It's almost nearly impossible. So if you have a specific skill and fall into this category, listen to your emotion. Do you work best in a studio with low lights? Do you work best in situations where you can really set the scene for your mood and emotions? This one is very internal. So whatever you have an emotional response to, follow that feeling if you fall into the spontaneous and emotional category. So I hope this helps share a little bit about creativity and the different categories in which people could potentially fall. I personally think everybody has a little bit of creative genius within them, and this helped me bring out and identify where people potentially innovate best. If you allow a person to be in that proper type of environment for the right amount of time, novel ideas will shine. So thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe as it helps my channel and allows me to keep doing these. So thank you all so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.